All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. One Liberal MNA criticizing the federal government, the Justin Trudeau Liberals, over how it's spending money and going on provincial jurisdiction. The timing, however, is very interesting because, of course, the Quebec Liberals are on the cusp of a leadership race that should be pretty darn spicy. Let's head over now to Frederic Beauchemin, Liberal MNA in Marguerite-Bourgeoys, official opposition critic on finance affairs, and he's on the line. Monsieur Beauchemin, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Marcos.
So first things first, let's talk about the criticism of the federal government on how this current Liberal government treats spending, particularly when it tramples over provincial jurisdiction. What's the point you're trying to make?
The point is quite simple, actually. I've been in finance most of my life, so I've actually been able to look at some of the imbalances. And what we're experiencing here is a fiscal imbalance between Ottawa and Quebec in field of competence that are belonging to Quebec in certain aspects and fields of competence or field of specification of jurisdiction that are belonging to Ottawa. And that's where the problem is.
And can you give us maybe some examples in your mind that are egregious? You know, because often you can say, well, listen, maybe it's a shared responsibility and maybe the federal government can provide its insight and actually be a help here. But do you have any examples where it's just egregious? It's the federal Liberals wanting to hand out the money themselves and not working with its partners in the provinces?
There's that, and that happens regularly, as we've seen in housing lately last spring. But specifically, the issue as it relates to, for example, what Quebec does to help people in housing in Quebec is based on Quebec's capacity to raise money, to be able to fund this within its own means. Now, if it's not a field of competence is in Ottawa, then therefore, if Ottawa uses money that it's raising from the tax dollars that they're collecting from everyone, but using that in a program that's not a field of competence of Ottawa, then it's using money that should have maybe stayed in Quebec to the Quebec's taxpayer, or if that's the case, just simply give it without any resistance to all of the provincial governments so that it's fair and well distributed. That's more efficient.
So how should Quebec and the other provinces be fighting back here? Because I know the premiers of all the provinces met over the summer. It was like a unified story, whether it's François Legault, Doug Ford, the rest of them. They all pretty much said the same thing. Knock it off, Justin Trudeau. It doesn't seem like the Liberals are listening in Ottawa. So what should the provinces, what should Quebec do at this point?
There's like two questions in your question, that's for sure. The Liberals have been spending left, right, and center, obviously. That's one thing as well. But to specifically relate to the point where, what are the other premiers, what they should do, they should coordinate their efforts for sure to make sure that it's clearly understood that the jurisdiction of every province is to be respected. And that makes it efficient. The last thing we want to do here is waste resources, make it inefficient for all Quebecers and all Canadians, in this case, to actually pay taxes at two levels of government for the same service, which should have been delivered only by one. So if that's the way it's going to be, then why not just simply give the money to the government of proximity, the one that is your provincial government, the one that actually has the field of expertise, the knowledge, the know-how on the ground, as opposed to starting up a program at the federal level with no expertise, no person on the ground, no knowledge of what's required, and wasting the money at that level. So we should simplify stuff, and that's the intent behind what I said.
With Quebec Liberal MNA Frederic Beauchemin, I need to ask you this. Obviously, polling-wise, the Quebec Liberals not faring well, particularly among Francophones in this province. Is there a worry? You're the Quebec Liberal Party. Obviously, the federal Liberals are very different, but do you worry the Justin Trudeau brand of Liberal is hurting the Quebec Liberals because of the association there?
Some could speculate that way, but I'll be just clear on one aspect of all of this, is that the Liberal Party of Quebec is not a branch of the Liberal Party of Canada. It's a party that stands alone for the interest of all Quebecers, and that's what we stand for. We want to help every Quebecer. It doesn't matter where you're from. You're from Montreal, you're from Laval, you're from Abitibi, you're from Gaspé. It doesn't matter. We're here to help all Quebecers, and that's what it is being a member of the Liberal Party of Quebec.
Now,
Period.
getting your name in the headlines probably pretty important for you because we're basically on the cusp of the beginnings of this race for the next leader of the Quebec Liberal Party. Denis Coderre is officially in. Now, I know we've spoken in the past. Have you made a 100% decision here? Are you in this race? Are you running to win in this race right now?
I'll be making an announcement when I'm ready. Everything is very exciting about what's happening. I'm very excited to see that other people are wanting to join the debate, and that's going to be fruitful for the Liberal Party of Quebec. It's going to be fruitful for all of Quebec to actually have that huge debate of ideas with a plethora of candidates, and I'm looking forward to participate if I choose to go forward with this. And I'll let you know when it's time.
What are the things, though, that are coming into your mind to make that decision? I want to go up against Denis Coderre. Big rumors about Pablo Rodriguez from the Federal Liberals, by the way, making the jump over to provincial politics. What are the factors in your mind to say, okay, I should do this or not?
My contribution to Quebec is what's the most important aspect of the decision-making process that I'm going through right now. So from my perspective, what do I have to add in terms of value? What's the value proposition for all Quebecers? Obviously, my background in business, obviously my background in being able to see these fiscal imbalances and these fiscal arbitrage that are occurring left, right, and center, being able to actually call it for what it is when I do see it, that's the advantage that I provide to the table. These are the kind of things that I'll be able to do if I decide to go forward.
So, listen, if you are going to be a hopeful candidate for the Quebec Liberal leadership, I guess I should throw you some curveballs here and ask you opinions on some of the hot topics of the day. So I need to ask you about language in the context of that directive to the healthcare sector. It has created, my goodness, our listeners have been riled up for a week over what they deem is a significant change. This is something we were always told. When it comes to healthcare, you will always get care in your language. Certainly the directive, when you read it, sounds like that is going to change. I know Jean-François Roberge and other CAQ members say, no, nothing is changing for Anglophones. But what's your take on the language of the directive, on the language of care in this province? Tell our listeners where you stand on this.
Listen, it's quite simple. English Quebecers should be able to get their medical services in English, period. French Canadian, French Quebecers should be able to get their service in French, period. It's not more complicated than that. There doesn't need to be like a second derivative analysis of what needs to be done and all that sort of thing, period. This is what I stand for.
What's behind, then, in your estimation, this directive, the language of this directive, and what we see from the CAQ government?
Well, the CAQ is probably trying to whip its base to make sure that they don't lose many more separatist vote within its base, and they're using that as a wedge to divide Quebecers, which is not the way the Liberal Party of Quebec think. This is not the way I think. We should be uniting Quebecers together, not divide them, and that's unfortunately what we have with this government and what we will be providing to the table once we do run in 2026 as a Liberal Party that's trying to unify all Quebecers together. That is a sign of unity that this province, that Quebec needs. In
your estimation, if the Liberals were to form the next government, perhaps with you as premier or someone else, whoever's the leader of the Liberal Party, if you form the next government, would you be willing to say here on the record that a Liberal government would send out a directive that is as direct as you just said before, period? You want service in English, you get it in English. You want service in French, you get it. Do you think a Liberal government would be that direct?
It has to be. I mean, I don't know why it's even a question. It has to be. It's simple. Everybody who lives in Quebec that speak English or French should be receiving medical services in its mother tongue, period.
Frederic Beauchemin, I thank you for your time this morning, and I appreciate it. Hopefully we have some future discussions.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day.
Take care. That's Frederic Beauchemin. He's the MNA for Marguerite-Bourgeoys, official opposition critic on finance, and perhaps still waiting to find out if he'll run for the Liberal leadership.